Here we are again.
I guess you already did. Yes.
You confused me with that
Good to see you.
Good to see you. How you doing? How much class would you like?
I don't know. How many people are waiting for?
I think so.
Okay.
There we go.
I'm all right. How are you? Did you get swag? Did you get swag? Nice.
How about you?
Sure.
I like this song.
I know, right? I know. I was like, really? What they said.
They do? Oh, Mariah. Oh, yeah. They've all come. It's my first time, so I'm excited. This is family. Yeah.
I think so.
I do. I work as a my audit for. I get you anything besides the drinks? Are you traveling? Yeah. I've got two people with me.
I grew up. I was born this way. I grew up this way. You must have. Yeah.
And that's yours.
I love that, but I grew up.
Well, she poured that for you because I said for you.
Yes. How are you?
Yeah.
Good. I can't remember your name. We met last night. And I've already. I'm Doug. Darn it. I've already lost.
I was named after a 90s pop star. That's your clue.
You're not gonna tell me.
Nope, not
Hello. Very good. Good. Good day. You are. I'm gonna move so I have more room. Okay, that's fair. Yeah, nobody. What? Yeah. Make it loud.
Are y'all ready?
Oh yeah.
So, thanks for coming out, everybody, on a beautiful Saturday here in Louisville. We're excited to have great friends from Memphis, Tennessee, Old Dominick Distillery up to present some of their incredible expressions. Quick question. Raise your hand if you have never had any Old Dominick before. Okay. You've never had it, right? Raise your hand if you've only had it once. Okay, so we've got a lot of fresh meat here, right? All right, you're going to love this today, guys. Raise your hand if you're not a member of the Big Bourbon Club. Raise it higher than that. You bunch of sissies. All right. Even you can afford it because I have a free membership. It's free. Oh, the orthopedic in the group just broke his neck looking at me like that. It's free. Think about joining. We'd love to have you. If you go to the App Store, Big Bourbon Club on the App Store, we'd love to have you get on there. We've got 7,000 members in 5 continents, 17 countries, I believe, in all 50 states. We're doing some great stuff. Most of what we do at the Big Bourbon Club is simply celebrating bourbon and trying to share with people, for the most part, who would call themselves somewhere between a beginner and kind of intermediate. This is not a bunch of snob experts. This is a bunch of people who love to explore and they want to learn and have fun. Raise your hand, honestly, if you would call yourself somewhere between a beginner and an intermediate with bourbon. So it's half the group. And then the other half would be ahead of that, which is okay. It's for everybody, but we're glad you're here. Raise your hand if you're not from Louisville, Kentucky. You drove in. So we've got people that a third of the group, and we got about 6 more coming in from up in Fort Wayne. So we got people from all over, and we're excited to have you all. We really appreciate it. We have postponed a couple of events. I thought I was going to have Achilles surgery next week. It's been postponed. So I'm working on Hard Truth out of Brown County, Indiana. Really, really good. A lot like Old Dominick, they're their own distillery. They make their own juice, been doing it for a decade. It's good stuff. And I moved them to the fall thinking I had to miss this spring, but I'm trying to get them back and they think they can do it. So I'll let you know that as soon as I can. Also, we have barrel pick bottles in the back for Maker's Mark and Knob Creek that's left. All the Yellowstone are gone. Look at Ed Comfort in the back. Okay, then we have Maker's Mark if you want any. We'd love for you to take that. There's like 10 bottles of that left. And then we have one more barrel pick coming. If you haven't tasted it, Limestone Farms out of Georgetown, Ed's got a bottle there of a sample. We have not seen the bottles come back yet, but they will be come back probably within the next week or 2, and we'll get those out. But we have plenty of those bottles left. All right? Any questions? Everybody ready? All right, so let me introduce Clark, Wyatt, Olivia, and JB. They all came in from Memphis. We're excited to have them. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Memphis with me to go see these folks. So only 3 here at this point, but we've been down. Big Bourbon Club has been to Memphis twice with Old Dominick with over 20 people on both trips, and we've had a great time. And last night we did a barrel pick with them out at our log cabin in Waddy, Kentucky. Had an incredible time. They are fantastic people, great bourbon, so give them a good, big, warm welcome.
All right. Thank you for having us, Big Bourbon Club. We're happy to be here. We got the whole crew. As Steve said, we've got Olivia capturing all this beautiful content for us. We've got JB here, and we've got Wyatt. So one thing we love to do when we get out in the field and, meet fans, or as we know, a lot of people don't know a lot about Old Dominick. There's 2 things we like to do. Tell our brand story and why we're different and why you need to go buy our bottles. But we also want to just genuinely make some friends. So that is the goal for this afternoon. So we're going to be hanging out with all of y'all at the end of the day. We want to leave here and y'all know a little bit about Old Dominick, but a lot more about the people behind the brand. Because frankly, I mean, a lot of y'all, I'm going to assume, know a ton about your favorite distillery or a new distillery that you can't wait to go visit, or you go on vacation and you kind of line up your trips around. I mean, they've already been to 5 distilleries today, right? Case in point. Y'all are in the industry, right? Can you stand up and walk a line for us real quick? No, just kidding. But what y'all find in doing that, doing your travels and kind of, you know, being an enthusiast, is the best part about this industry is meeting the people behind it and then learning the little tidbits about how the brand came to life. All right, so come on through.
By the way, one of you jacket.
I mean, I don't know. Y'all had as much luck with Coach Cal as we did, so it's fine. But so learning a little bit of tidbits about what makes the brand important, and that's what I'm going to tell you about today. So Old Dominick actually has a pretty storied past. We actually started, really it predates back to 1859. That is when our founder, Dominico Canali, came to Memphis, Tennessee. He was an Italian immigrant. So our story is much aligned with it, you know, kind of the true American immigrant story, right? He came over, he didn't know what the heck to do. So he kind of looked around and, you know, one thing led to another. He started kind of doing a produce business. Eventually, he was like, produce is boring. Whiskey, let's do that. So he started bringing in barrels of whiskey from, ironically enough, Kentucky, Indiana, Cairo, Illinois. Started a pretty bustling whiskey business in Memphis, Tennessee. The first, you know, to do that in the state, or in the western part of the state. Kind of grew into a pretty important brand. I think at one point in time they had over 1,000 barrels under, you know, under construction. And at one point he kind of settled on making this spirit, which we'll get to at the end of the day, called the Old Dominick Toddy. All right, raise your hand if you've tasted that real quick. Sounds pretty good. The toddy is something that he said, look, I've got some whiskey. It might not be that great, but I've got a ton of produce, I've got spices, I've got all these things. So he created something very truly unique. And at the time, it was the Old Dominick Toddy. It was the first of its kind to be bottled, kind of more of like a medicinal flavor. And that brand was pretty widely known throughout the Southeast. Now, if you think about that time frame, Prohibition, the temperance movement was really taking hold. And being he was in Memphis, it was a wild place. It still is a wild place, frankly, if you've ever been. But what happened is the temperance movement kind of took over. Tennessee actually enacted the federal prohibition 10 years prior in prohibition than the federal government did. So when they shut the doors, you know, the brand kind of went dormant. Now, a lot of people ask, well, what happened to the whiskey? I will tell you that whiskey was not just dumped in the Mississippi River, okay? It went somewhere. In fact, Beale Street was always flush with some Old Dominick barrels. I can guarantee you that. The family that, you know, Dominico Canali, he was very familiar with Boss Crump at the time, which was kind of a little bit of the West Tennessee Mafia, I should say. So the Old Dominick whiskey, it did not go dormant, but the brand did shut its doors around 1919. Okay, so the family took over, right? They had to do something, so they started a bunch of different businesses. They had the produce business going on, which was pretty cool. And I'm a firm believer in everything in our brand history kind of happened for a reason, right? So they had a ton of refrigerated warehouse space, which at the time was kind of unique, kind of different. There it is. And can y'all hear me now? Okay, good.
That goes off every time you tell a lie.
Oh, that's going to be loud today. No, I'm just kidding. We had built a bunch of refrigerated warehouses. Okay, so during the time the prohibition kind of fell by the wayside, we got a call from Augustus Busch. All right, anybody know that name? Okay, just a little north to St. Louis. He had to have a way to get his beer, which at the time beer was not pasteurized yet. Okay, so he had to have a way to get his beer from the bustling breweries in St. Louis down the Mississippi River and kind of distribute it from there to kind of the Mississippi Delta. So guess what? Deacon Alley gets the call, which was a very fortuitous bounce, I should say, to use a basketball term, for the Brand family, for the Canale family. So we became one of the largest Anheuser-Busch wholesalers for many, many, many years, which was great. That allowed the family that we worked for to kind of re-engage in the community. They got to do a lot of events, employed tons of people. If you go to Memphis, Tennessee, chances are you're going to meet somebody within 10 minutes that either knows a Canale, worked for a Canale, or some sort of, 6 degrees of separation. I always it's like the Kevin Bacon, joke, but in Memphis, okay? So fast forward to about 2008, okay? If y'all remember that time, which was a wild time, the housing market crashed and we had a big financial crisis. One of the family businesses that we had was actually a lumber business. All right, so they cut timber for the housing market. Well, guess what? One day that dried up. So once again, I believe everything happens for a reason on our family brand story. The Canale said, well, what the hell are we going to do with all this timber? And at the time, the bourbon boom just was coming on strong, right? And they got a bunch of calls from a bunch of cooperages, Kelvin Cooperage, Independent Stave, a lot of different, industry people. Hey, we need lumber. Okay, so we became a producer and a supplier for part of the supply chain of the whiskey business. Then we look around and look, we're supplying the lumber. We got this old family brand that sat dormant for 100 years. Let's revitalize the brand and bring it back to life. So once again, everything kind of happened. I don't know, there's some synergy to the story here, but sooner or later that gave everybody the push. Hey, let's do this thing, right? And shortly around that time, there was the discovery of the original bottle of Old Dominick Toddy, which is one we're going to taste here in a minute. It actually was sitting in a conference room where our offices are. And it sounds very, sexy and glorious, but really it was just in a closet somewhere. And somebody found the bottle and was like, well, let's pop this sucker open and see what it tastes like. Well, guess what? It tasted like shit. It was 100 years old, full of old whiskey and sugar and spice, and it was disgusting. However, the label had this really cool picture of these two roosters going after a shot glass. It was called Old Dominick. I mean, everything was sitting right there, ready to be revitalized. So the ownership group, they said, hey, let's do it. Let's go all in. We actually sent that bottle off to get it chemically analyzed, broken down to where we could basically recreate that recipe today, which is very, very neat. So when we taste that, what y'all are going to taste is almost the exact same process as what we were doing 150 plus years ago. So with that being said, the first product we kind of launched was the Toddy, but we started laying down whiskey in 2017. All right, and somebody mentioned earlier about Huling Station. I think it was one of you guys. Of course, like every distillery, look, we got to put something out. So we actually went to MGP in Indiana, and we said, look, we want to basically use your kitchen, but use our recipe, knowing that very shortly thereafter, we would start making our own distillate in Memphis, Tennessee. So the Huling Station brand, people know it, it's phenomenal. But we kind of did two things at once. We created this kind of source whiskey line, knowing all the while we had a long-term goal to put out our estate-produced stuff, which we'll get to in a moment. So first barrel was laid down in January of 2017. We signed the barrel. It's still sitting at the distillery. If you come do a tour, we'll show it to you. We'll probably never open it, but we've been blowing and going ever since. We actually had the first female master distiller in the state of Tennessee's history, Alex Castle, who we love, who's actually a Kentucky native. And she's since moved on, but we accomplished a number of firsts under her tutelage. We laid down the first ever legal barrel of whiskey since Prohibition in Memphis, Tennessee. The first Tennessee whiskey to ever be distilled, aged, and bottled by a female master distiller, which is pretty cool too. And we have a little different take, which I'll get to in a moment. We are Tennessee whiskey. Now, I know we're in Kentucky, and there's a little bit of a push and pull all the time between who thinks that, which region has it figured out. Well, we're not in any of those fights because we are a Memphis whiskey, right? We have a different climate. We have ridiculous humidity, which is only good for one thing, and that's actually aging whiskey. And two, we have phenomenal water table. Nothing against the Kentucky limestone water, but I feel like our Memphis water might have a little. I see you're reserving your comments there. Well, okay. Contrary to popular belief, we don't pull the water from the Mississippi River. Okay, it actually comes from a sand aquifer that's thousands of years old. So we sit on a phenomenal water table, which, of course, as you know, that is the kind of impetus to making good spirits. So we have a lot of the factors that Middle Tennessee and the East Tennessee distilleries don't quite have. But being that we're the first brand to really actually do this thing the right way in Memphis, the results are still to come. But what we've seen is our oldest barrel is 8 years old. We're seeing some phenomenal results just from our early process. I mean, we're still a very young distillery. So some of the expressions we'll get to in a moment, but we're super excited about kind of what we see coming. But bringing that back to kind of today, the fun part about this brand is getting out and doing stuff like this. And everybody has to have a story behind why they're important. And there's so much competition. I mean, raise your hand if you have a dozen bottles laying around that you haven't even popped open yet, because there's a gluttony. Dozen might be a low number for a lot of y'all, but there's just so much competition out there, and what we're really focusing on is kind of sticking to our lane, trying to create a space that is a Memphis whiskey brand, and learning along the way. And I think that's the fun part about this business. There is no secret sauce. If anybody tells you there is in this business, they are lying through their teeth. You kind of have to figure it out and make your own mark with it. So, but that's the kind of the quick and dirty of the Old Dominick brand. I know some of y'all have been, but I will say y'all have got to come see us. It is a different experience. It is one like you're never going to get. It is an urban distillery. We're right in the heart of the downtown sector. And we're also across from Gus's Fried Chicken, which, raise your hand if you know what that is. Okay, a lot of folks there. So you get your chicken, you get your whiskey, you really can't beat it. So come see us in Memphis for sure. So y'all ready to drink a little whiskey, a little bourbon? You want to get into it? Any questions about the brand? And we can wait till the end, but does anybody have any questions about kind of the story of Old Dominick that I can get to moment?
Why do you have a chicken on top of this barrel?
Why do we have a chicken?
What's the word for all about it?
Bill, chew it up. And there you go. I do know that is just like, yeah. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, that is a real rooster. His name is Sergeant. Okay, that's our mascot, Nico. All right, I think I mentioned a minute ago, but the original toddy bottle had two roosters fighting over a shot glass, and their talons were kind of trying to get the shot. Nobody knew the significance of those roosters, frankly, until one day, I forget the guy's name and why you might remember his name, but there's a guy who worked in the timber business for the Canales, and he walks in the office and he says, them theirs are Dominickers. And they're like, we were like, what's a Dominicker? Apparently the Dominicker hen is America's oldest breed of rooster. It was a prized rooster, which is actually, there is an American Dominicker Rooster Society still to this day. You got to remember back in the day, rewind to the 1890s, they didn't have ESPN, they didn't have Hulu, they didn't have, Netflix. They had chicken fighting, they had cockfighting. Okay, so the Dominicker hen was like the top dog of that industry, right? And Dominico collected these things, and we come to find out, once again, everything kind of happened for a reason. There's some synergy behind the brand that He loved those. Those were his prized roosters. In fact, if y'all get some stickers over there, you'll see a portrait of him holding. Yeah, exactly. But over the time, we've adopted Nico as our mascot. And so you'll see him here, but you'll also see him on all of our bottles. And we have a lot of fun with him. So much so that we have a 20-foot rooster on our building that quite literally changes the skyline of Memphis. If you're coming across the bridge, you can see, there's old Dominick. There's a chicken on the roof. So that is the significance of the rooster. We call him Nico. So there you go. All right. So the first pour we're going to do is our Tennessee whiskey. All right. So it should be far left pour. Why is this important? Okay. I mentioned we're doing our Memphis whiskey thing. Of course, we've got to call it Tennessee whiskey. Thankfully, go ahead. Go Vols. There you go. GBO. Although I'm a Tigers fan, so, you know, whatever. But anyway, so why is it important? We have to have a Tennessee whiskey being in the state of Tennessee, but ours is very, very different than the Tennessee whiskeys you might know and love, okay? Or maybe you don't love them, but no problem there. What we kind of do is a little bit differently. We follow the Lincoln County process. Raise your hand. I'm sure most of y'all are aware with that, okay? But we kind of follow it our own way. You know, everybody says Memphis does their own thing in Tennessee. We might as well be our own state. We just basically do the Lincoln County process so we can be in the category. We have to be. Yes.
Raise your hand if you're not familiar with what the Lincoln County process is.
Okay.
Raise it high.
Raise it high. All right.
So let's do this real quick. Start sipping on your bourbon, start trying it, and then
Whiskey.
we'll explain what that, excuse me, the Tennessee whiskey. Go Vols. I'm getting it all backwards.
There you go.
Thank you. Would you mind telling them what it is?
Yeah, so Lincoln County process is something that was made famous by Jack Daniels, right? And much like Kentucky bourbon has its own mystique and lore, Jack Daniels, thankfully, and George Dickel for that matter, they kind of have their own spin on that, right? And so sugar maple charcoal is the basis of that process, right? If you've ever been to Jack Daniels, their big thing is it goes through miles and miles and miles. It comes out of this, 100 or 1,000-year-old, holler, and it goes through miles and miles of sugar maple charcoal. Okay, I do believe back in the day that was truly the magic. That was their secret sauce to making their whiskey good, because before then they didn't have reverse osmosis. They didn't have the technology that brands have today. So that truly did change their whiskey and make it, frankly, the most iconic brand in the world. But our take is a little different. We have the best technology you can get. We sit on a phenomenal water table. So we have our own kind of elements that we like to use. So all we do is we run it through a sugar maple charcoal filtration system. I'm using air quotes. That's about that big, okay? We're checking the box. We don't want to strip all that profile. We don't want a overtly sweet whiskey. Our Tennessee whiskey is a lot more akin to Kentucky bourbon, in my opinion. It still kind of has a little bit of that spice and that little pepper. I mean, of course, it's sweet. It is 75% corn. So you're going to get some residual sugar and an overwhelming sweet profile. But we don't want to strip that flavor out. And our process is also different, that it goes into a number 4 alligator charred barrel. So our concept is, why run it through all this charcoal, take out all the impurities and all the profile and all the nuance, if we're going to just shove it in a charred barrel and let it sit for a minimum of 4 years, to which call it Tennessee whiskey. So I hope if y'all take a sip and y'all see, there's a lot more nuance. And this profile here, or this expression here, is 85 proof. So we are proofing this down a little bit, and you're still going to get a lot more, a little bit more nuance to it, right? And, we hear this all the time. We're like, hey, I don't like Tennessee whiskey. I know what it tastes like. Like I said, ours is Memphis whiskey. It's a little bit different. Question over here. We go right into the barrel. We proof it down a little bit, but we go into the barrel at a relatively low barrel entry proof. His question was, are we proofing it down before or after? We're going in at 110, all right? That's a relatively low barrel entry proof. And for a distillery our size, we still are a craft distillery. It's economically not the smartest way to go, but we do believe that it gives us the best results. So think about it in this expression here. We're pulling it all out of the barrel. It could be 124, 125. We are adding a whole heck of a lot of water to proof it down to this 85 proof. All right, and I do believe that that is one of the differences of Old Dominick and how we do things. A lot of distilleries our size, they go into the barrel as high as they possibly can so they can have more output. We're not so much focused on output. We're more focused on, you know, nuance and quality. So enjoy that one. Let's jump over to the next pour, which should be, raise your hand if you do not have 2 pours, by the way.
Pour number 2 now. So let's do this.
Okay. All right.
Let's talk about number 1, the Tennessee Whiskey 85 proof. Thoughts on that? What did you get off of that?
Banana.
Brown sugar. Caramel. What else? Yell it out. Did you like it? Raise your hand if you liked it.
Okay.
Raise your hand.
And it's okay if you do not, you know, that's not your thing, but, you know, were you pleasantly surprised, I guess?
Raise your hand if you've never had Tennessee whiskey, at least that you know of. So most people have had it and they understand it, right?
Yeah.
But not everybody. But raise your hand if you had a bias towards thinking you didn't like a Tennessee whiskey just because it's called that, not bourbon. So a little bit of that. From the lady from Tennessee, by the way.
It's only because you're eating chicken wings while you're doing that.
What do you think about, I've got a particular thought on the finish. What do y'all think about the finish?
Yeah.
What? I was going to say the exact same thing. I thought it had a great, warm, mid-long finish. What do you all think? I mean, it didn't dissipate. It wasn't short. And what is that? What is that MSRP on that bottle?
$29.99. So, you know, the thing we've done over the last few years is we're trying to make whiskey.
Everybody listen up. Everybody listen up, please.
And it's a perfect segue into this next spirit. We're trying to make whiskey that people don't feel bad about. Popping that cork.
Let me interrupt one
Go
second.
ahead.
Okay. Hey, listen up, everybody. Quiet. We've got some good friends coming in right now. They drove in from Fort Wayne yesterday. They were with us last night.
They got lost.
No, they've been at Brown-Forman all morning, and they're running 40 minutes late. When they walk in here, I said, just walk in and be really quiet. I want everybody here to stand up and give them standing ovation. Would you do that? This is Ben Gillette, Andy. Stand up and cheer. Make them feel bad, okay? He just gave me the 5-minute notice.
Okay, when they get here.
All right, go ahead, Clark. Sorry.
So the question was, what's the MSRP? You know, what are you going to find that first pour? $29.99. Very approachable. We're trying to make whiskey people don't feel bad about buying, drinking, and buying a second bottle of, okay? So the next pour that's coming around is actually our bonded, all right? Raise your hand if you, I just want to know who's on the second pour yet, generally. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm going to assume y'all know what bottled and bond is, so I'm going to skip over that unless we have any questions about what it is. They know. She said we know. Okay. Now, it's the same mash bill as what y'all just tried at 85 proof. All right. But, of course, the difference between this is it is 100 proof being a bottled and bond product. Now, I prefer the Tennessee whiskey mash bill at this proof or higher. And I think y'all might agree. There, you can get a lot more complexity in that Lincoln County, or the lack thereof, charcoal filtration, I think shines better at a higher proof point. So I would tend to think that most of y'all agree with that. 100 proof or some of our barrel proof whiskey is the way to drink this particular spirit. Once again, happy accident. I don't think we set out to come to that conclusion, but over the last few years, we found that Tennessee whiskey, that high corn content, it just drinks better with a little bit more punch, right? And I think this particular SKU punches above their weight, especially for $49. All right, this is not something that you're gonna randomly find in a allocated bottle share. No, you can buy this every day. You can stake claim on quality and price, and think this is a good one for it.
I probably didn't hear you. You probably already said it before a little while. We've got this is a bonded whiskey, meaning it has to be at least 4 years old.
Yep.
But what is the age of your bonded whiskey?
All right, so the question was, what is the typical age range for our bottled and bond process? Being that we waited a few years to put our first bottled and bond batch out, that's important. That is important because it gave us time to develop more quantity for each distilling season, right? So if you know anything about bottled and bond, you have to do spring or fall you know, it has to be in that window. Hold on 1 second. I see
Y'all ready?
these.
Y'all ready? Y'all ready? Everybody ready? Woo! Yeah! Come on in, everybody!
Hey!
Yeah! Woo! We're on Eastern time zone. Hey, Ben.
Love it.
Ben, come on over here.
Where you been?
Hand me a chair. We can get 3 right there.
Oh man!
And
All
I'm
right, we're
gonna
gonna
put
give them a
couple
second
here.
to settle in, and we'll get back to it.
Thank you very much.
I know.
Ben, I got 2 here.
Lord. Troublemakers have arrived. For those of y'all on the live stream, that is pretty funny.
Well, we call that a pregnant pause. Glad y'all could make it.
Wow. All right. Y'all settled? Y'all got your pours in front of you?
We
That is
need
too
some
funny.
glasses.
There's some right
Okay, here we go.
All right. So, yes, question?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody listen up. It's hard to hear, please.
Okay. The question for all of y'all was, these are fairly unique, being one at low proof and one at 100 proof. What is the nuance and what is the difference, and what, you know, is, why are we getting that profile? I think there's 2 things. There is the number 4 char is a huge element to what we do. The other thing is all of our barrels are actually cut from West Tennessee white oak that the family that I work for owns. Okay, so there is this seasonality and this spice that is very unique to McNairy County, Tennessee, which is, if you know where Jackson, Tennessee is, it's kind of about an hour out of Memphis. That is where McNairy County is, all right? And that is like the best, in my opinion, place to start with timber for barrels. So the nuance and the spice and the cedar element that you're getting, I think comes from our integrated process, from not only the char level, but from the barrels themselves. Does that answer your question a little bit? Yeah. So one more thing, there was a question about the differences between, or the age of our bottle and bond, okay? So we didn't put out a bottle and bond until 2 years ago. So that allows us to stockpile a ton more barrels. And so everything ranges from 5 and 6 years in the bonded. Now we have put out a couple batches that are relatively older. You might see those from time to time, or if you come to the distillery, occasionally we'll put those out. But those are only in like 4 barrel blend batches at all. That's pretty much all. You're really only talking about 300 bottles at a time. Whereas this is readily available in like 12 to 15 states. So you can kind of find this wherever you're shopping. And if you don't find it, ask them to stock it for me, please. Thank you. Yeah. So the mash bill on this is the same as the first pour. It's 75 corn, 13 rye, 12% malt. Yes. Which is kind of a traditional Kentucky bourbon mash, you know, frankly.
What did you say the age is?
Yeah.
Oh, it's
Question
older.
here.
You have the cash strength of the bourbon. Is there a cash strength of the Tennessee?
So the question was, you had the cash strength on the bourbon, which we'll get to momentarily. We do have a cash strength in the Tennessee whiskey, but we typically only put that out in versions of single barrels, okay? Actually, last night, which y'all should have came to, raise your hand if you were there last night, all right? How about a thumbs up for the cash strength Tennessee whiskey that we tried? All right, so we actually, I pulled a barrel a couple days ago with one of our distillers, and it just so happened to be 149 proof. Okay. Now, everybody's like, yeah, you know, it is hazmat, but I think some of the folks, and if anybody wants to attest to this comment, the profile and the nuance from that barrel at 149 proof was phenomenal. I mean, it knocked our socks off. So we're gonna release it online. It's going to be called the hot chicken pick. But I will say, if you see a single barrel of the Tennessee whiskey anywhere, grab one, try it out, or ask whatever store you see it out, hey, pop that, I want to taste it. Because It's really fun, but we don't have a cask strength version of that yet. We might at a time, but right now we're hammering away on the cask strength bourbon, which we'll get to in a minute. So the next pour, I think, which be your third from the.
Well, now hold on a second. Hold
Yep.
on there, big dog.
What's up?
You're going awful fast for us.
Oh,
Huh? Slow down, big dog. We're in Kentucky now. We're not in West Tennessee anymore.
hey.
What did you all think about the bottle and bond?
Yeah.
All right. Travis just gave me my cue. If you liked our first one, the Tennessee whiskey, the best of these two, raise your hand. And if you like the bottle and bond best, raise your hand. So more bottle and bond. What kind of profiles you get off the? What kind of flavors you get on the front of it? Maple. Yell it out.
Pez candy.
Hold on a second.
Pez
I
candy.
got. This is true trivia. One person in this room went to Woodstock. One person in here went to Woodstock and partied like it was 1969. Who was that, Sandy?
Right there. Yeah.
The rumor is when Hendrix got on, she went up on stage. I don't know if that's true or not.
Oh.
Raise your hand if you don't know what Pez candies are. If you
Pez?
don't, P-E-Z. If you don't,
Don't.
does everybody know?
Everybody knows Pez candy. Come on.
Does this really taste like Pez?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me just say this. Hey, have you ever driven to Memphis? Anybody? Raise your hand if you've driven to Memphis. It's a solid 6 hour, and it's not an easy drive. I can get to Canada faster in my car from this spot than Memphis. I can get to Windsor in 5.5 hours. Sandy drove into Memphis on our last trip for the tasting and drove home that same damn night.
She sure did. And what I heard from the owner of Buster's Liquor, that they polished off 12 bottles in his office. So props to you.
Well, I don't know anything about it.
She drove down in 6 hours. She drove back in 3.5.
That's right. All right, what'd you think of the bottle and bond? Y'all like that? Isn't that good? And it's got a great finish. It's complex, 100 proof. Tom, you okay with that?
The question was, what's that retail for? $49.99. So under $50, hard to beat.
Hey,
for
Brian,
that
even
product.
you can afford it.
That's great.
You can afford it. You're so tight. Tight as a tick. $29. All right. Any other thoughts? Any other thoughts on bottle and bond? Dennis? It is. It's got a great finish on it, doesn't it? We call that an old Tennessee hug. And that's right. When they hug you, they pull the wallet out of the back of your pocket.
It's called, yeah.
All right.
Keep your head on a swivel.
All right. Do we have number 3 yet? Raise your hand if you do not have number 3.
I think we're good.
Okay. We good with number 3?
Yeah.
All right, Clark, take over.
So number 3 is my favorite spirit that currently we've put out. All right. So we're getting a lot of press and a lot of notoriety for our high rye bourbon. A lot of y'all know that Hewling Station brand, which people really flock to that. And the mash bill of that is actually the same mash bill as what y'all are trying. Okay. It's 52 corn, but it's 44% rye. Okay. So the immediate spice profile is going to hit you. The pour y'all have right now is actually bottled at 90.1 proof. If you know anything about Memphis, our area code is 901. So it's a little play to the hometown favorite, but that 90 proof is very important, right? If y'all remembered a minute ago, I said we go into the barrel at 110. Even for this spirit, which is $29.99, give or take on the shelf, for an everyday drinker, it's a minimum of 4 years, 90 proof, that high rye spice bomb for under $30. It's really tough to beat this quality in this glass right here. I love it too because it's perfect for cocktail making. If you're going to make an old fashioned, a Boulevardier, whatever it is your favorite kind of go-to, that spice content really cuts through any sugar you're going to add to it. So the bartenders love this spirit. And, you know, it's fun because it's 90.1 proof, kind of pays homage to the hometown. But it's relatively light, I think, especially compared to what we're going to have next. But anybody have any preference one way or the other to this one right here? Like it? I feel like y'all like, I want some more proof. You okay? But we put this out about 18 months ago. And you know, it's going gangbusters. We're really loving it. But the star of the show currently is your fourth pour, okay? And this is just dynamite, right? All right, if you've seen this out there, you might have seen it in different. Yeah. So we're bottling the cash strength bourbon. Everything's a minimum of 6 years now. So a couple points here: 6 years minimum, and everything is right out of the barrel. We're doing 4 barrel blends at a time. So if you ever see your bottle, you can take a peek. This one particularly is 124 proof. All right, it's up there. It's an everyday. I mean, it is tough, right? I see a little coughing back there. I like that. But I mean, if you're adding an ice cube, or you're, you know, like me, you're just kind of drinking neat, you let this settle into your glass, you cannot beat this one. Anybody want to give a little quick review of the profile here? Putting somebody on the spot. Anybody? Go for it. What? Give us a little profile review. Oh yeah? Okay. Yeah? Okay. Hazelnut and cherry. Anybody pick up hazelnut and cherry on this? Maybe the cherry? Yeah. Pez candy, not in this one. I don't think we're going to find that chalky
Are
flavor.
we on cash drink number 4? Or are we on number 3?
We're on cash rank number 4.
Can we put it in reverse and go to 3?
Say that again?
Have we talked about number 3 yet?
Yes.
Has everybody spoken about it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Pick up, Steve. Come on.
I was watching the Cyclone game for a second. Sorry, I lost my train of thought.
But this is what we're talking about. Anybody want to venture a guess on how much this would run you at your bottle shop?
I'm watching everything. I can't keep.
60. I heard a 60. What would you pay for this one? $49.99. Hard to beat. One thing that we found over the last few years, and I mentioned that there's so much competition. People are putting out great, unique, and exciting stuff. What we're trying to do now is put out quality products at a price point that's kind of approachable for everybody across the board. And I think we've done it in this one right here.
Hey, Clark.
Yes, sir.
Question on Facebook Live.
All right, what we got?
The question is, hey guys, everybody listen up, please. The question is, bourbon sales in general have been down. The category's down for a couple years.
Yeah.
What are you seeing on your higher priced expressions versus the lower MSRP? Are you seeing it move on a parallel track?
Yeah,
or?
we're seeing people generally downshift, okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you were used to buying $150, $200 bottles, you're shifting down to something in the $80 range. If you're just an everyday fan of bourbon, you're kind of transitioning out to collecting bottles and buying bottles that, hey, I don't feel bad about opening this tonight and enjoying it with friends and family, right? And so the reason why we moved off of doing limited release things that are $100 at a time, frankly, there's just too much of that out there, in my opinion. And there's so many brands trying to kind of recreate the wheel here and doing funny and goofy and weird things, and they're not letting the quality speak for itself. So we've kind of repositioned all of our products to that, trying to stick to our guns, trying to create a profile and a nuance to each of our spirits, but not make them to where you can't go out and find them at your everyday bottle shop. And frankly, you know, everybody just can't afford the $200, $300 unicorns that everybody's looking for these days.
So hey, everybody, let me ask you a question. Cask Strength, have we all tried it? And you said it. What's MSRP on this?
$49.99.
So this is a $50 bottle. What do you think about this? Could you sit around all night long and just sip on this, how you would normally sip any other bourbon? Would you rather have 5 of these or 4 of these versus a $200 unicorn bottle?
Right.
Raise your hand if you would rather have a $200 unicorn versus 4 of these. Raise your...
Subjected to price point.
Joe Kennedy's middle name is Contrarian.
Yeah. He's buying.
He was a CFO. My partner's a CFO. He's tighter than a tick.
Oh, that's great.
Isn't that good? Yeah. Is this the same cast drink we did our Zoom event with?
Yes,
or is it the next?
It's the same one. Same one.
Proof on it?
Oh, yeah.
What's the proof on it?
124.
124. What do you think? Is that easy to drink for 124?
Oh, yeah.
What do you
Question
think?
here.
What do you think, Scott and
Comment.
Paul? Isn't that good?
All right, question here.
Hey, everybody, listen up.
It's a
Listen
great.
up.
It's a great question. So,
Andy had a great question.
it's crazy. Hard to believe. He is wearing an old Dominick T-shirt under that sweatshirt. So let's all stand up. Let's see it. Let's see it. Come on. Come
Oh
on.
my God.
Come on. Paid actor. Yes. There you go. There you go. There you go. All right. The question was, is it batch format? You know, how do we know what's different? Okay. Each of the bottles is going to be a different proof. All right. We're doing 4 barrel batches at a time, but we're 6. Oh, I'm corrected by Wyatt. 6 barrel batches at a time. They're going to range in proof. Yeah, we're going to see 124. We're going to see. We've seen some 121, and we've seen some 119. But what our team is doing is blending to profile, and whatever that proof is on that 4 barrel batch, it's going to go out. So all of our bottles are custom printed here. So one day you might find one at 124 like we're drinking today. The next day you might go into a shop and it might be a little bit of different in proofs, but the profile is not going to change. So we're more so blending to profile than to proof. Yeah, it's all about that spice bomb and that caramel and sweetness on the back end. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so raise your hand if you have gotten to the 5th sample or we want to wait a minute. Okay. Okay. Here, I can help you. I can help you. Shot glass? You're in a commercial.
What are you doing?
I'm gonna talk about the toddy for a minute.
Okay, but that's number 5, right? Okay, so I'm gonna have you stand up.
Have you not had the toddy? That's right. That was a Southern Whiskey Society in Franklin.
Hey, everybody, hold on a second. We're gonna do a commercial break. So, hey, listen up, everybody.
We're going to number 5.
So far, don't just be nice to our friends from the South. How do you like Old Dominick relative to maybe what you thought coming in? Because most of you hadn't had it. And again, I've used this analogy. Age-wise, it's a little bit different, but you all know I have good friends in Carbondale, Colorado. Marble Distilling. They're 12 years old. It's almost the same age. They sat there and made their own. They patiently waited, and all of a sudden, 12 years later, they have incredibly good whiskey, bourbon and whiskey, right? Peerless is another one that did the same thing. They're not as old. They've not been around as long, but they started from scratch. They built in the urban center of Louisville, no differently than Old Dominick. Raise your hand if you have seen Old Dominick's distillery and headquarters downtown Memphis. I got to tell you, it's incredible. It is beautiful. It's huge. They did not spare a dime on it. When you get down to West Tennessee, go see it. Where are you from? Terre Haute? Auburn, Indiana, which is how, come here, Andy Joe Clark. So Andy Joe, they drove in last night off of I-69. They came in, and she has a really, really cool speakeasy in Northeast Indiana.
Right.
Would you tell everybody about it, please?
Sure.
And I want everybody to go up there and go see it.
Yeah, not all at the same time, though. We don't have room for everyone at one time. Okay. I'm Andy Joe. I'm from a little town called Auburn, just north of Fort Wayne. I have always been in the event and hospitality space, especially in bar and restaurant. I've never actually served on the food side, except for I did have a little donut shop. That's kind of how the speakeasy came to be. I had a donut shop in my little town called Baker's Dozen. I'll tell you the history of it a little bit because it's kind of cool how the name came. The building, the first bakery was built in 1922, which was during Prohibition. The building was built in 1880. So we went with Baker's Dozen Donuts to honor the original bakery in that building. However, when we realized that the cost of food service was pretty high and the profit margin was pretty low, I said, how can I make more money? Sell liquor, obviously. So there was a storage room in the back with back alley access, and there also wasn't really anywhere in Auburn to get a real old fashioned and made consistently in the way it should with good premium ice and great glassware. And I was like, I can do this. So Ben and my husband, Ben, is right here. And he and I worked hard on that space, trying to turn this little storage room into a back alley entrance and get a liquor license, which we all know is not always easy. So then when we decided to speakeasy, let's roll with it with Baker's Dozen. You get 13 donuts in a box, and we're gonna go with the speakeasy space in the back because I'm sure people were drinking in the crappy basement for sure. So of the donut shop. But so my space is really about storytelling. I also am a liquor distributor. I work for RNDC too, but that came after the speakeasy. So I really just love storytelling. There's not very many true intimate places that don't have TVs and they don't have windows and you don't have live music all the time, and you're forced to really talk to each other and build community over bourbon, you know? And so we do a lot of bourbon. I really love gin as well, but we won't talk about that right now. But I just really think that there needed to be a space that creates community, brings people together, that we're not selling beer in buckets, and we're just really talking about showcasing spirits and doing some cool creative stuff with cocktails. So that's my spot. It's called Door 13. You can find it on Instagram and social media, but you won't find it on Google Maps because it's a speakeasy. Everything is text automated, so you'll be able to, you have to text in so we know where you're coming. It's very on trend with a speakeasy where you have to tell us who you are and why you're coming and who told you about the place. So, but anyway, yeah, I'm really excited about being a part of the club. Ben Gillette was a really kind of came in and brought me in and said, hey, you should be a part of this. If you're gonna come to Auburn, make sure you go 20 more minutes north to the 6 on James. It's also owned by a really cool chick named Marty Hayward. She recently became an honorary Kentucky Colonel too, and they have some incredible bottles up there. She's awesome. But yeah, so I'd love to have you all, but let me know when you're coming. I'm accessible on the app. Anytime you send anything to Door 13, it comes straight to me and my phone too. Cool. So, but thanks for having me. It's been so fun to meet everyone too. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right. Fort Wayne, not Terre Haute. I always get them confused. So if you get up to Fort Wayne, go see Andy Joe, okay? So how are we doing? Everybody good? So we're going to do 5. We're on the 5th one. You all ready to do 5, or you want to talk about one? So let's do this. If the Tennessee whiskey #1 was your favorite to this point, raise your hand. We still have a couple of favorites of Tennessee whiskey. All right, the Bottle and Bond was #2. If that's your favorite, #3 was 85 proof. 90.1. If #3 was your favorite, oh boy, it's all going to the cast. If Cast Drink was your favorite, raise your hand. Huh? Well, there you go. All right, Clark, take over.
Now, I know we've got a lot of bourbon and whiskey purists in the room. Apparently a gin purist too. Nothing wrong with that. But this spirit right here is what I say. This is one that's made to be shared. Okay. If you've started drinking, stop. Don't start. Let me take you through a journey here. All right. Envision sitting around a campfire, sitting at Thanksgiving, at a holiday party, whatever you want to kind of take yourself back to. But this is a holiday in a bottle. That is like what I tell people about it. Now, if you think that, oh, I love cash strength bourbon, or I went to Buffalo Trace this morning. How many distilleries did y'all go to? 3, okay. You ain't gonna find this at any of those places. I can guarantee you I've traveled all over the U.S., and I do this all the time, and this is unique as you can get, all right? And if you look on the back of this bottle, it says a relic unearthed, okay? If y'all remember, earlier in the story, I told you about them finding the original bottle, right? So this truly is 150 plus years old in the making. Now, back in the day, Dominico was taking some of that whiskey he was bringing in from Kentucky, Indiana, you name it, and it wasn't quite as good as the whiskey we currently make, all right? So what did he have to do with it? He had to flavor it. He had to make it better. So what he would do is he'd take dried spices, mulling spices, dried fruit that maybe wasn't ready to go out on the produce cart, but he still had to use it, and he threw it in a barrel, right? And he figured out, hey, what's it going to do to the whiskey? Now, this is way before your infusions are even a thing, all right? He was quite literally taking a cheesecloth and putting spices, dried fruit, lemon peel, salt, pepper, you name it, steeping it in the barrel and kind of letting it almost dissipate and kind of just naturally flow into the whiskey, and then putting it in a bottle. They didn't have, shelf additives, anything like that back in the day. So I don't know what it looked like, but if you look at your glass, everybody take your glass, you can kind of see, I call them floaters. Now, in another spirit, you might say, something's floating in my glass. Well, that's okay, all right? The way we do it is very similar to how he was doing it back in the day. However, we just start with a little bit of a better base product. We're actually using the cash strength bourbon that y'all love, that everybody voted overwhelmingly for. And we're taking a cheesecloth, same thing, same process. But we're putting cardamom, cinnamon, cloves, black pepper, dried lemon, dried orange peel, and sugar, of course. And then we're blasting it with some hot water. And just like you would make tea at home, you think about dropping a tea bag and just kind of letting it do its thing. That is exactly what we're doing. But we're just doing it in the barrel, right? And just letting it kind of matriculate and just do all its things. We let that hang out for about 2 days. And then we take that barrel, we dump it in a tote, and we put it right into the bottle, okay? If you look on the back of it, it says, we had to remind people because we started doing it one way and people would be like, do I need to shake it? I'm like, it's not going to hurt. So if you look on the back, it says, shake well before enjoying. Give it a little shake. Now, let's all sip it, all right? You learned about the process, and it's unique enough, but what does it take you to? It reminds you of something, right? Everybody, right? Christmas, just hanging out with friends, campfire. It's got this kind of ability to take you to a place. Exactly. Grandma's house. Anybody else, Right. I mean, it's just such a unique spirit, right? And this isn't the one you bring to a bottle share and you're like, hey, try this out, because you're going to crash your palate in about 5 seconds. But it is something that you keep at home or you bring out during the holidays. You say, look, this is something you got to try. And frankly, if you come to the distillery tasting room,
Really loud up here.
if you come to the distillery tasting room, and Olivia and JB and Wyatt can attest to this, we'll give you the red carpet. We'll roll out all of our cool stuff. But every time, almost 10 out of 10, this one is the one that everybody remembers. They leave with it. They say, you got to try their cash strength. You got to try this or that. But don't leave there without trying a bottle of toddy. At least taste it. So if you can tell all your friends about it, and it's important to us too. Proof, 60 proof. All right. So what? MSRP $29. And now, I think I told y'all the story here too, way back in the beginning. But if it wasn't for the discovery of the original bottle of Old Dominick Toddy, we wouldn't have jobs. Y'all wouldn't be sitting in this room listening to me and Steve get up here and tell stupid jokes, okay? Because the brand itself was truly unearthed because of this product. So it's very important to the story, the brand, and all the family that's behind it. Do you have a question?
How'd you get the recipe?
So they actually sent it off to Lance Winters, okay? If anybody knows that name, Steve, you might. He started a little brand called Hanger One. Y'all remember Hanger One vodka? He's done a bunch of things over the years, but he's like the mad scientist. So he was able to take that bottle, break it down, chemically analyze it, and shoot us back the recipe. And Alex Castle figured out how the hell to do it, which is pretty cool too. We actually used a company here in Louisville called Flavor Man, which a lot of y'all maybe know. They helped us create kind of like a syrup, if you will, to kind of enhance the profile a little bit. But overwhelmingly, it's a natural process, which is pretty cool. Just about 2 days. So that's really all you need. Yeah. It really is. It really is. And people, if you have any just, home chefs in the room here? Anybody know how to make bread pudding? Okay. Put your bottle of this in your bread pudding. You can thank me. You can thank me later for that little tip. Yes. Yes. Very, very good. It's better than rum in a bread pudding. So there you go. All right. What other questions do we have? Whether it's about one of the spirits, whether it's about Old Dominick, I'd love to hear some. So we have distribution throughout the Southeast, and I always say we're in the Big Ten and the SEC. All right, so we kind of have that market covered. We also are in like Total Wines and a couple regional and national chains. But if we're not in your home state, which for the most part we are, with the exception of the Indiana contingent here, you can go online and you can buy our spirits. Also, if you go over to the table over there, there's a QR code you can scan, and anybody in the Big Bourbon Club, either here or listening to on the stream, we're doing 10% off any of our spirits on our website, so you can get those shipped straight to your door if it's not distributed. We can ship to Indiana. I would be lying if I told you what states you can and can't ship to, but all I know is go to our website and they'll tell you if you can get it in your home state. It seems to change every day, so you never know. Any other questions?
Real quick. You don't answer with your mouth. Answer by raising your hand. We're going to give away a golf shirt here. There's 2 left, I think. Maybe 1 left.
Doesn't matter the size.
It doesn't matter the size. This is our game, not yours.
Right.
If you don't want it, you can pass on. All right. I'm going to ask the trivia question on Old Dominick. Raise your hand. You help me pick who the first person to raise their hand is. All right.
You don't count, Bill. You don't count either. How about in the corner over there?
Well, I haven't asked the question yet.
Put him on the spot.
No, I'm going to ask the question. Raise your hand. What is the name of the red cock we've been talking about? I saw it. Nico, big dog.
Nico.
All right.
Yeah.
Give away 2 tours.
All right. Now, the second part of this game is we have a costume here. Now, we'd like to welcome you on stage, and we're going to bring you out and make you wear it. You're going to wear it. I'm just kidding. That's not happening. That's not going to happen. His face was just like, oh, my God, no. Oh, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Any other questions, comments we want to hear? Go ahead.
So they fit on your holiday tonic.
Right.
It is very similar to a lot of Rocky Eyes that I've had.
Right.
So not processed with the same, not partnered with anybody.
No, so Rock and Rye is a great product, but to me, it's cloyingly sweet. It has like a kind of a syrupy profile to it, and it's around 40 proof. And the difference in ours, I think, is that it starts with a very quality whiskey base. And then we're kind of adding, profile to it, right? Where that, and nothing wrong. I think the Rock and Rye, we get that comment a lot. It's a lot better than Fireball. But the Rock and Rye is a beautiful spirit, but ours just, I think there's a little bit more nuance, a little bit more elegancy to the base spirit. In fact, if you ever take, and Wyatt, our guy right here, he's famous for this. If you take our cask strength bourbon and you add about a half ounce of toddy, you're right out the door. You're ready to go with an old fashioned right in the glass. So that's actually really something I recommend y'all trying. Even if you have a little sample left, do a little home bartending here, that's a great way to enjoy it.
Can I get a hot toddy without the toddy? That'd be a cask strength neat.
There you go. There you go. That's pretty good. About $29.99. Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you this. We're not quite done yet. Anybody have any plans in the next 2 months to go to Memphis or West Tennessee? You gonna go, Doc? So will you all go down there? Okay, so have you been down to the distillery in downtown Memphis? You've already been there? Okay, so Old Dominick has offered, I don't know how we're gonna do the contest, but if you're interested in winning a free tasting and tour at Old Dominick in Memphis, go see Olivia and JB, and they're gonna talk to you about how to do that, all right?
Sweet.
Did I do that okay? Perfect?
We'll figure it out.
All right, what other questions? We had a question over here somewhere. Okay, so we started with how many people, raise your hand again if you've never had Old Dominick before the event. Raise it high. Well, that's okay. This is their stuff, right? This is the estate. So probably 2/3 of the group. How many people today, now that you've had multiple different expressions, would say, I liked it enough that I would go buy a bottle?
Ooh, I like that right there.
You did pretty good.
Let's go.
How many people, how many people will go to Memphis in the next year? Seriously?
Come on.
So Clark, how you spell Shafani?
Like this. Shh, Fani.
Oh my God, I asked you not to do that.
I know, sorry. I'll tell you, if you are coming, I gotta kind of get on my soapbox here. We were just voted, I believe last fall, the top 10 distillery tours in the U.S. by the USA Today. And so, funny story, we actually have team members that have worked their way up. Olivia being one of them, she started at doing tours, doing tastings, worked into our a bar program. So if you do come to the distillery, the people behind the brand are the ones that work there. You're going to get to meet bartenders, tour guides, production people. That is truly what we do. It isn't about us doing this stuff. Y'all got to come. And what's cool about our distillery, you walk right into the production floor. You can touch, you can feel, you can smell, you can check out what's going on. Everybody's welcoming, open arms. So please do come see us. It's because it's awesome. It's a great time. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah.
You guys are very hospitable in your tasting room, and then also you guys surprised me with a speakeasy invite to a hotel.
Yes.
She was kind of creeped out by it, but then we got there, you realized it was okay.
Hey, that's Memphis for you. That's Memphis for you. There we go. Hey, it gets very sketchy. 1 foot in, you're sketchy. You walk back, you're good to go. So just mind your P's and Q's when you come down and see us in Memphis. All right. Anything else, guys? Y'all, we really appreciate being here. Yes,
ma'am. We have one more question.
That is very true.
Maybe because you look younger than 21.
Yes.
Everybody, thank our friends for coming in from Memphis. Old Dominick.
Thank y'all. We appreciate it.
All right. After party starts now. Thank you all. Have a great weekend.